From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Millicent Walker.
Good evening. Tonight, federal lawmakers set to investigate the state of the Port Harcourt refinery ahead of the $1.5 billion planned rehabilitation by the executive. Gunmen killed 2 workers of Kaura Polytechnic in Zamfara State. Africa's leading female executives in the media share workplace experiences and challenges for younger women to learn from. And India temporarily halts exports of AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine over rising cases in the country. Plus, you see business, sports, news from Abuja, and later, international news from our London studios.
On business news tonight, Afrexim Bank partners with Nexim Bank for joint project preparation fund to boost investment in Nigeria's trade sector.
On sports news tonight, Sepp Blatter gets new 6-year ban from football after FIFA investigation.
And from Abuja, federal government blames Nigeria's low rating on Transparency International Corruption Perception Index on gaps and opaqueness in doing business.
The federal government's decision to commit $1.5 billion to rehabilitate the Port Harcourt refinery is still generating reaction from various quarters, the latest being the House of Representatives. The lawmakers today mandated its Committee on Petroleum Resources Downstream to organize an investigative hearing to ascertain the true state of the refinery, as well as carry out a comprehensive audit of funds previously spent on the Port Harcourt refinery and other refineries across the country. The House is worried that so much has been spent on maintaining and rehabilitating the refineries, but the output has barely improved. The motion was moved as a matter of public importance by Representative Onyofiok Luke.
Previous rehabilitations notwithstanding, the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation NNPC audit report had last year reviewed that 3 of the nation's 4 refineries recorded 1.64 trillion naira cumulative losses in their 2014 to 2018 details. Despite processing no crude oil in June last year, the 3 refineries still cost the country 10.23 billion naira in expenses. The 3 refineries processed no crude oil because of the rehabilitation works being carried out on them. Therefore, there was no associated crude plus freight cost for the 3 refineries since there was no production, but operational expenses that amounted to 10.27 billion naira. This resulted in an operating deficit of 10.2 billion naira by the refineries, Mr. Speaker. The House therefore resolves, 1, to mandate the House Committee on Petroleum Resources Downstream to carry out an investigative hearing and conduct a comprehensive audit of funds previously spent on the rehabilitations to repairs and maintenance of the Port Harcourt refineries and the key performance indicators therefrom.
And now to security. Former Deputy Governor of the Central Bank, Obadiah Melafia, is in the news again, but this time he's not spatting with DSS operatives, but giving his strongest criticism so far on the level of insecurity in the country. Dr. Obadiah, who was reacting to the recent attack on the Benue State Governor, Samuel Otom, says the spate of insecurity in the country right now is worse than what was witnessed during the regime of late Sani Abacha, which is believed to have been involved in many human rights abuses. According to him, an attack on a state governor is a grave one and should not be glossed over. The former CBN banker was a guest on our breakfast program, Sunrise Daily.
This is totally unprecedented. This is the worst time ever in the history of Nigeria. Ask anybody. You can't even compare with Abacha's times. Abacha's times was a golden era compared to what is happening. You think Abacha would have tolerated all this? You can't travel on these roads, killings everywhere, destruction everywhere. I was trying to make the point that world powers want to destroy Nigeria. And what they've done is to come and meet some people and tell them, yes, you were born to rule. You have there's an agenda of, Obasanjo called it of Fulanization and enforcement of one particular religion against the rest. The world powers encourage them and tell them, look, we're behind you, go ahead. They provide the weapons, and some local elites buy into that idea. And they begin a campaign of genocide, because this is what it is. If you carry heavy weapons unchecked, you go into the forest, you go into the ancient savannah, you kill people, you rape women, you kill children. What are you? They call it banditry. And I think those who use the term bandit also have a big problem. In fact, I find that using the word banditry is like really trying to rationalize away what is existential evil in itself. They are not bandits. A bandit is an agbero, the kind you find, the touts you find in our motor parks, in Agege, in all the motor parks of the country. Those are bandits. They are trying to swindle you of a little naira here and there. They might carry a small knife in their pocket. These are what you call bandits. But when a man carries AK-47, AK-49, he has rocket launchers, he can kidnap hundreds of school kids, and you call him a bandit, then you have a problem yourself. They're not bandits. That is the official line, and it is very dangerous, because failure to call evil by its name is itself evil.
Meanwhile, controversial cleric Sheikh Ahmed Gumi says if bandits are not assured of their safety and rehabilitation, they will not let go of their arms. The cleric made the comments during a virtual event hosted by the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies on insecurity in the country. He says the government needs to reassure the bandits of their safety and reintegration into society before they can lay down their arms.
It's an ethnic war going on between people in the forest and the neighboring villages and hamlets. The nomadic herd feels that he's threatened and that nobody's listening to him. He has grievances. Nobody's listening to him. That's why he took on to the weapons. So when we went there and they saw a listening ear, they are ready to negotiate, to tell us their grievances, and they are ready to incorporate into the larger society. So in such a case, I see no reason why we should not have dialogue with them. And also looking at their educational status, they don't have any official or unofficial education. How can a nation which is serious about security will leave a chunk of a society so uneducated? We leave it to arms and drugs. I don't think that society is serious. So how can we disperse them, one, rehabilitate them, secondly, without an amnesty, because they are holding weapons trying to protect themselves. If you don't show them they are safe in the larger society, there's no way they can leave that weapon. And that's why we call for an amnesty for them, just like what we had in the Niger Delta.
In Kaduna, troops of Operation Thunderstrike say they have killed 2 bandits in the Buruku general area of Chukun local government in the state. According to the Kaduna State Commissioner for Internal Security and Home Affairs, Mr. Samuel Arwan, several other bandits also escaped with life-threatening injuries during the ongoing operations against armed bandits covering 5 local government areas of the state. Mr. Arwan says the troops neutralized the bandits after conducting search and rescue around the Buruku forest. Staying with security, 2 staff of the Federal Polytechnic in Kaura Namoda, Zamfara State have been killed after gunmen stormed their residence at the low-cost housing area. The victims, Usama Nazifi and Bashiru Mohammed, have both been buried. An eyewitness told Channels Television that the victims first gained access into Nafiz's room, who called for help. He was joined by his neighbor, Bashiru, before the bandits overpowered them and subsequently opened fire on them. The rector of the Polytechnic, Dr. Yahya Bande, described the attack as unfortunate, barbaric and condemnable, while the police spokesman in the state says troops are on the trail of the assailants. And in the North Central, 2 farm managers have been abducted by gunmen at a commercial poultry farm in Pampo village of Asa local government area of Kwara State. Confirming the incident to Channels Television, the police public relations officer, Ajayi Okasomi, says the incident happened around Eekori area. He said the gunmen initially abducted 3 doctors before one of them escaped and alerted the police.
Say the mode of dresses, when things happen like that, different versions of stories will come. The most important thing is that the people were kidnapped and we are trying to rescue them. It doesn't matter the kind of attire they were donning. The fact remains that they've been abducted and the police is trying all within its ambit to ensure that those victims are rescued alive and suspects arrested, possibly.
On the fight against insurgency, human rights watchdog Amnesty International is raising concerns over the brutality of women and girls by Boko Haram insurgents in the northeast and are calling on the International Criminal Court, ICC, to immediately open a full investigation into the atrocities committed by the insurgents. In a recent report, Amnesty says that due to the dire situation of victims of the attacks, the federal government must urgently provide adequate humanitarian support to victims, especially women and girls, who are most vulnerable during these raids. According to the Director General of Amnesty International Nigeria, Mr. Osai Ojigbo, as Boko Haram continue their relentless cycle of killings, abductions and looting, they are also subjecting women and girls to rape and other sexual violence during their attacks. These atrocities are war crimes. This is a humanitarian crisis that is getting worse day by day. The Nigerian authorities and partners must act now to support those most in need and ensure this horrendous situation doesn't continue to deteriorate. The statement also added that the conflict in the northeast has displaced more than 2 million people, while Boko Haram has frequently targeted aid workers trying to respond to the crisis. The Senate is working on a legislation to establish a support fund for the families of fallen servicemen. The sponsor of the bill, Senator Abba Moro, says it is extremely important that the National Assembly enact a law for a fund to take care of the families of security personnel killed in service in return for their sacrifices for defending the country. Our correspondent Linda TIGRAY reports.
Military personnel and security agents are some of the biggest casualties in the war on terrorism waged in the last few years. The fallen servicemen leave behind spouses and loved ones who have to get on with their lives, sometimes with little or no support.
Security operatives who die in the line of duty in Nigeria.
A federal lawmaker, Senator Abba Moro, is sponsoring a bill which will create a support fund for families of security personnel killed in service. The bill receives the support of his colleagues.
2021. The main intent of this bill, Mr. President, is to, among other things, establish a fund to be known as the Families of Fallen Servicemen Support Fund, into which shall be paid all monies prescribed under the bill and monies received as donations, bequests, trusts, and contributions for the welfare of families of members of the armed forces and operatives of other security agencies who die in the line of duty, including the combat and non-combat duties.
My support for this bill, Mr. President, is because of the necessity for people who take bullets for all of us, for people who make sure that we are all safe, should be shown the deserved respect and love and care.
The Senate passes the bill through the crucial second reading and refers it to the Committee on Establishment and Public Service Matters to report back within 4 weeks.
And development improve genetic research.
The upper chamber also passes through second reading a bill for an act to amend the Police Service Commission Act to strengthen it for effective oversight of the Nigeria Police Force.
With this amendment, the following are a few benefits the Nigerian society will have achieved. Complaint will be given a place to voice concerns outside the police, and they will be heard and treated with dispatch. This will reduce all incidences of the scenarios like the NSAS and all that. Police officers will truly be held accountable for their actions, and the Reformed Police Service Commission will improve the quality of the internal investigations in the police.
The bill is read the second time and referred to the Committee on Police Affairs to report back within 4 weeks. Linda Akibe, Channels Television News.
In part two, after the break, Africa's leading women executives and the media share workplace experiences and challenges for younger women to learn from. Do join us again. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. House of Representatives to investigate funds spent so far on Port Harcourt refinery ahead of planned rehabilitation. Gunmen kill 2 workers of Kaura Polytechnic in Zamfara State. Africa's leading women executives and the media share workplace experiences and challenges for younger women to thrive in the industry. And India today temporarily halts the export of AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine over rising cases in the country. Women's Month is barely over, and the United Nations is hoping to keep the conversation going on women's issues with the first of a series of media dialogues taking place this year. Titled Where Women Lead, a conversation with women at the forefront of media in Africa, leading women executives shared their experiences in the workplace, their challenges, and plotted the way forward for young women to thrive in the industry. Our Foreign Affairs correspondent, Amarachi Ubani, reports.
Men here are a bit more.
What do you have when 4 leading women from media organizations in Africa gather virtually to converse? Honest conversation. It kicks off with the director of the UN Information Center in Lagos paying tribute to some of the world's leading women and how they are portrayed in the media.
Even a lazy journalist will find it easy to develop a headline about Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. One major global news media outlet introduced her as a woman with 4 children and a grandmother.
On the panel is the vice chairman of Channels Media Group, Mrs. Olushola Momo, CEO, General Entertainment and Connected Video MultiChoice South Africa, Yolisa Pale, Deputy Group Managing Director, AIM Group of Stations in Nigeria, Tatiana Musali Nore, and the head of content, Switch TV Kenya, Tamaima Ibrahim, who relieve backgrounds and challenges that helped them become the women they are today in the workplace.
I was not allowed to talk to the president because of security and, because of what you have. You couldn't just talk to a president. Shortly before then, the security and the orderlies were pushing and shoving, and they were not going to have me do the interview. And I was determined and purposed to conduct that interview. Long and short, a few weeks after, I got summoned by the Director General of the establishment who said he had a petition written against me by a security man who had alleged that I was going to threaten him and take him out of office, and I was using my influence as a woman. That was what the first baptism of fire I had as a journalist.
We really sort of consciously look to check that we are not, skewing and falling back into old stereotypes.
Creating women mentors, breaking the stereotype, and forming leading women networks, they say, have helped in producing efficient and enduring workspaces in their organizations.
we encourage women to, with a network, to mentor one another, share concerns.
We have a whistleblowing policy, at least in our case, in our company, and we encourage it.
Having a very strong network of women leaders, and not necessarily just in media, people who I can go to and have conversations with around leadership.
Men here are a bit
Incidentally, the gender equality fight continues. These Amazons have blazed the trail and perhaps made the fight a lot easier. Amarachi Ubani, Channels Television News.
And we continue the conversation here as I hand over to a fellow woman in the media, Linda TIGRAY. She has more stories. She joins us from Abuja studios. Hi, Linda.
Hello, Millicent. Welcome to Abuja. The Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency is calling the attention of governments in 8 states of the country on the need to take early precautions as they may experience severe flooding. The Director General of the agency, Clement Nze, says latest predictions show that Bayelsa, Kogi, Ondo, Jigawa and 4 other states stand the risk of experiencing heavy flooding if drainages and canals are not cleared immediately. He also warns people living along floodplains to relocate to safer areas before the peak of the rains.
Good morning. Annually, the Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency shares vital information on areas that could be flooded from overflowing riverbanks after a heavy downpour. According to the 2021 seasonal rainfall prediction issued by the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, the earliest onset of rainfall is March the 1st along the coastline of the country, while the latest onset date is June the 29th in the far northern part of the country. The earliest cessation date for rainfall could be around October the 9th in Katsina and northern parts of Sokoto. For the flood outlook, communities around the riverbanks should take note.
Those living in the coastal areas in Nigeria, take for instance Bayelsa, Ondo, Rivers, and other coastal states, Delta State inclusive. If there is melting of ice, which gives rise to the swelling of the oceans, like in Bayelsa and those coastal states, maybe about 1.5 or about 2 meters is the highest in dry land to the ocean, the difference. So that when the ice is melting, there is tendency for upland, the land that are adjoining land in all those places like Bayelsa, Delta, Rivers, to begin to get submerged or covered by water.
Underscoring the importance of planning ahead, he issues warnings to the affected state governments to avert the adverse effects of this natural disaster.
This is the best time to begin to prepare. And if any person is living within the floodplain, to find his way out of such places to avoid loss of lives. We have no less than 3 more months to do the needful. When the soil will be saturated, the moisture content will be high, that any precipitation, any rainfall will translate to overland flow. So the states, local government areas in the country have ample time to do what is necessary.
As Nigeria approaches the peak of rainfall, this forecast is necessary for those living along floodplains to take caution and avert any danger.
The federal government has been explaining reasons behind Nigeria's low rating on the Transparency International Corruption Perception Index, blaming it on gaps and opaqueness in doing business in the country. The Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, explains that reforms have been initiated, particularly in the port sector, to engender more transparency in the system. He says inconsistencies in Transparency International rating in the last 10 years is likely owing to inadequate data. But he is confident that by the time reforms generated begins to yield results, the nation's Corruption Perception Index will improve. He made the comments after the Federal Executive Council meeting chaired by President Muhammadu Buhari today.
Take this rating seriously. So we actually went and analyzed the ratings, and we found that there's been some gaps. Either we have not forwarded enough data, or they have not, analyzed such data. Because we found it strange that the country's rating in certain areas remained the same for a period of 10 years, and we are making, we are taking remedial measures so that they can get this data in respect of these sectors, because we believe that it's not possible for you not to improve, for you not to lose points for 10 years. So there's a bit of discrepancy there. And you see that in recent time we've embarked on various reforms at the sea, at our seaports, so that our rating will improve. So that is why we're concentrating on the ease of doing business, making sure that people can get to the ports, clear the goods in good times. And by the time some of these reforms are put in, start yielding, fruit, I'm sure that the perception will.
To education, the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board, JAMB, has released the timetable for the 2021 Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination and Direct Entry Examination. The UTME would hold from Saturday, June the 5th to Saturday, June the 19th, 2021, as there will be no extension of time for the sale of forms. According to JAMB, registration for the examinations will commence on Thursday, April the 8th and end on Saturday, May the 15th. The governing board of JAMB is also insisting that applicants will have to supply their national identity number before they can register for the examinations. When the News at 10 returns, Abdul Samad Rabiu Initiative announces launch of $100 million African Fund for Social Development and Renewal. Plus, Afri-Exim Bank partners with Nexim Bank for joint project preparation fund to boost investments in Nigeria's trade sector. That's in Business News. Please stay with us.
And helping the traditional institutions in Delta State build a bridge of peace in their various domains is one area the Delta State government is taking very seriously. One of the steps towards achieving that goal is the inauguration of some landmark projects by Governor Okowa. Governor Aminu Tambuwal of Sokoto State and his Zamfara State counterpart, Bello Matawale, were Governor Okowa's guests today in Asaba for the inauguration.
I congratulate the people of Delta State for having a governor whose sole focus is in advancement of Delta State through the provision of critical infrastructures, considering the state's terrain, which comprise mangrove and freshwater swamp, road network, abated and linking communities together, and deployment of social amenities to the people of the state.
We will continue to do what we have to do for our people, because truly, with the ceding of schools back to the missionary, it became very difficult for most of our parents who do not have the resource to pay fees in secondary schools. And we felt that we needed to do something urgently to decongest the Agbo Model Secondary School. And I thank God that this is one of such, and we'll continue to look for further space so that we're able to grow other secondary schools for the public to utilize. I can see from the faces of our students that they are very happy at the kind of school that they have. But I must appeal to the teachers in this school to do the best they can to ensure that they offer appropriate teaching that will enable the students to learn. And I hope that our students will continue to study hard to ensure that they excel in examinations so that the reason for which this school was founded would be achieved at the end of the day.
The Nigerian Liquefied Natural Gas Limited wants to eliminate malaria from its host community, Bonny Island in River State. The project, which is to be executed in partnership with the United States Agency for International Development and the United States Center for Disease Control, is part of the company's corporate social responsibility. Our correspondent, Emperor Simon, has more.
It's another moment of giving back, and the Nigeria LNG Limited is targeting to eliminate malaria from Bonny Island, where it has been operating in the last 20 years. The managing director, Nigeria LNG Limited, Mr. Tony Atta, leads the team that will make this possible.
This actually was the center of administration.
According to the NLNG boss, it is time to end the scourge of malaria from Bonny Island and by extension provide a model for the elimination of the disease in Nigeria.
This is a very novel initiative that will bolster a thriving Bonny society, and I believe we will all be proud of our achievements in the years to come. We assure you, Your Excellencies, that NLNG will stay committed to this ambition, and we will not rest until the goal of zero malaria on Bonny Island has been achieved.
For the American government, there is no better way to partner Nigeria LNG Limited than to support its efforts to end a disease that kills more than 300,000 children under age 5 annually in the country.
Our efforts are multiplied when we combine them to address common challenges, share burdens, and broaden the circle of cooperation. As we sign this MOU today, I commend the efforts of Nigeria Liquefied Natural Gas Limited to fulfill its corporate social responsibility in helping to improve the economic climate of Bonny Island and the health of its residents.
The Bonny Malaria Elimination Project has 3 phases of execution.
The execution phase of the project is set to commence, with activities to be implemented based on the results framework developed for the project. The project design and setup are based on recommendations in the WHO certification document intent on achieving a malaria-free status.
After all said and done, pen is put to paper for the signing of the 5-year Memorandum of Understanding. A global producer of liquefied natural gas, the Nigeria LNG Limited says it is committed to the vision of being a global liquefied natural gas company, helping to build a better Nigeria. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
In furtherance of its social corporate responsibility, the Abdul Samad Rabiu Initiative has announced the launch of a $100 million Africa Fund for Social Development and Renewal. Announcing the launch, the foundation says the endowment of $100 million every year, beginning from this year, is to be executed in 2 tranches, with $50 million going to Nigeria and the other $50 million to the rest of Africa. According to the Abdul Samad Rabiu Initiative, the $100 million Africa Fund for Social Development is specifically targeting the education, health and social development sectors, starting with infrastructure and capacity development, as well as supporting the efforts of various governments in Nigeria and sub-Saharan Africa. Providing specific details on the modus operandi of the fund, the foundation explains that 1 billion naira will be set aside as grants to 6 universities in the 6 geopolitical zones of Nigeria towards the initiation and upgrading of infrastructure. The Ahmadu Bello University, University of Maiduguri, University of Nigeria, University of Benin, University of Ilorin and University of Ibadan are listed as beneficiaries in the first phase of the exercise. In order to ensure accountability, the Abdul Samad Rabiu Initiative adds that annual reports on all projects will be presented, with all activities overseen by a sterling board of trustees. Let's bring you some business news. Here's Teniola Shibowale.
Banking, so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thanks a lot, Millicent. Welcome to Business News. The African Export-Import Bank has signed a memorandum of understanding with the Nigeria Export-Import Bank to establish a joint project preparation fund in Nigeria. A statement released today by Fraxim Bank says the deal will provide early project preparation, financing and technical support services to public and private sector organizations in Nigeria's trade sector. Under the terms of the MOU signed last month, both financial trade institutions plan to unlock investments into sectors such as export manufacturing, agro-processing, solid minerals development, as well as healthcare, ICT, and creative industries. Both organizations aim to mobilize up to $50 million in the form of project preparation funds for investments in the country. The federal government is seeking the cooperation of state governments in the implementation of the medium-term National Development Plan 2021 to 2025. Speaking at a meeting in Abuja, the permanent secretary at the Ministry of Budget and National Planning, Mrs. Olushola Idowu, explains that the plan targets job creation and accelerated growth across all sectors of the economy. And Nigeria's stock markets made another quick rebound within the week as the main indicator of equities' overall performance rose by 0.98% today. Layo Adegoke has the details.
Well, the bull is back again, signifying its presence with nearly 1% increase on the market's main index, which climbed back to the 39,000 point at the close of today's trading session. You may wonder what drove the moderate rebound. Dangote Cement full-year result. The industrial giant released its latest earnings result overnight, and investors were quite impressed with the performance recorded last year, as well as the 272.6 billion naira being proposed as dividends to shareholders for the financial year. Let's flip over to the activity chart. You can see that investors' appetite for stocks is gradually increasing in contrast to the recent trading sessions, as more than 360 million shares worth over 5.7 billion naira changed hands in over 4,000 transactions. As I mentioned on Tuesday, investors expect that upcoming earnings results from some of the listed equities will take the markets back to its glory days as we count down to March 31st deadline for the submission of their financial statements. For now, let's keep hopes high for the outcome. That's it on the Stock Market Report. I'm Layo Adegoke.
Thanks a lot, Layo. Meanwhile, U.S. stock markets reversed into negative territory today following sell-offs in tech shares. But let's find out how other major global markets ended the midweek trading session. And that's Business News Tonight. I'm Teniola Shuboale. It's back to you, Millicent.
Banking so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thank you, Teniola. Still ahead on the news at 10, India temporarily halts export of AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine over rising cases in the country, and more from our London studio in Around the World in 5. Please stay with us. India has announced that it is putting a pause on all exports of the Oxford AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine, citing rising cases of the coronavirus in the coming weeks. The move is expected to affect supplies until the end of April. India has exported more than 16 million vaccine doses to 76 countries so far, majority of which have been the Oxford AstraZeneca jab. Here's more with Simon Pusey with more international news and Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5.
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu could struggle to secure enough seats in parliament to stay in power. That's according to early results from Tuesday's election. With almost 90% of votes counted, his right-wing bloc is on course to win 59 seats, 2 short of the threshold. In a surprise development, an Arab party, which was projected to get 5 seats, could hold the balance of power. The final outcome will, among other things, determine the course of Israel's relations with Palestine. The Arab party Ram has not declared whether it will support the efforts of Mr. Netanyahu to form a governing coalition or those of the bloc of parties opposed to him remaining in office. A 7-year-old girl has been shot dead in Myanmar, becoming the youngest known victim in the crackdown following last month's military coup. Chin Myo Chit's family said she was killed by police while she ran towards her father during a raid on their home in the city of Mandalay. Myanmar's military has been increasing its use of force as protests continue. Rights group Save the Children says more than 20 children are among at least 261 people who have died. Dozens of vessels are currently stuck after a giant container ship became wedged across Egypt's Suez Canal, one of the world's busiest trade routes. Rescue boats are working to free the 400-metre-long vessel, which was knocked off course by strong winds. Egypt says it has reopened the canal's older channel to divert traffic, amid fears it could remain blocked for days. About 12% of global trade passes through the Suez Canal, which connects the Mediterranean to the Red Sea and provides the shortest sea link between Asia and Europe. Brazil's daily COVID-19 death toll has passed 3,000 for the first time as the virus continues its rapid spread, pushing hospitals close to collapse. The country has reported 298,000 deaths linked to the virus since the start of the pandemic, with experts saying the situation is virtually out of control.
Quero tranquilizar o povo brasileiro.
President Jair Bolsonaro, who has opposed lockdowns and criticised face masks, defended his actions, but protests were held in major cities during his televised address. The Ethiopian Human Rights Commission alleged that Eritrean soldiers killed more than 100 civilians in the city of Aksum in the Tigray region at the end of November. The investigation followed reports of a massacre over 2 days in November in the ancient city, considered sacred by Ethiopia's Orthodox Christians. Eyewitnesses reported bodies remaining unburied on the streets for days. Eritrea has not yet reacted to the report. Congo Republic President Denis Sassou Nguesso has been re-elected with more than 88% of the vote, extending his 36 years leading the Central African oil producer despite a prolonged economic crisis. His closest rival, Guy Kolela, who died hours after the polls closed, received less than 8%. Kolela was being evacuated to France to be treated for COVID-19 when he died. Diplomats and political analysts had expected an easy victory for Mr. Sassou. Former FIFA president Sepp Blatter has been handed a further 6 years and 8 months ban from the game and fined £1 million Swiss francs by the body's ethics committee. Blatter's current ban from the game was due to expire in October, but the latest ban for ethics code violations will take effect from that point. Former FIFA Secretary-General Jerome Valcke was also handed an identical ban and fine. And finally, ice yachters from several countries have gathered in Russia for the DN Ice Sailing Week. Contestants braved Siberian temperatures on the Baikal Lake, with ice yachts skating across the surface reaching speeds of up to 100 kilometers per hour. Ice yachts have been used in Russia since the 17th century, when they were primarily used for winter fishing. As well as Russians, racers came from Germany, Switzerland and Poland to take part. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Thanks, Simon. The Lagos State Government has received players, coaches and officials of the Super Eagles at the Governor's Lodge in Marina, Lagos. The Governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, says he's excited to see the Super Eagles return to Lagos after more than a decade. The Governor adds that his administration recognized that the provision of infrastructure is a crucial component of sustainable sports development. The Confederation of African Football CAF has announced that fans will be allowed to take up 30% of the Teslim Balogun Stadium for the Super Eagles' final AFCON qualifier Lesotho, against Lesotho. That's on March the 30th. Now, the African Football Governing Body says all COVID-19 guidelines must be strictly adhered to. CAF, however, warned that it will not condone any breach of the COVID-19 protocols, stressing that temperature checks of the fans and social distancing must also be observed. Manchester City Football Club are to install more than 5,000 rail seats at the Etihad Stadium in order to take advantage of any potential change in the law to allow safe standing. The work will take place before the start of the 2021-22 season, meaning there will be no disruption for fans who by then are expected to be able to return to matches after the virus lockout. Rail seats can be folded away and locked in position to create a safe standing area with barriers. And world number 2 Naomi Osaka has withdrawn from next month's WTA clay court tournament in Stuttgart. Stuttgart organizers say the Japanese will now begin the European clay court season later in May. The tournament in southwest Germany from April the 17th to the 25th is set to go ahead behind closed doors owing to the COVID-19 pandemic. And that sports news is back to you, Melissa.
Thank you, Ayotunde. And the main news again. The House of Representatives today said it would investigate funds spent so far on the Port Harcourt refinery ahead of the planned $1.5 billion rehabilitation by the federal government. Plus, India today halted its export of AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine over rising cases of the coronavirus in the country. That's news at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Millicent Walker. Have a good night. Stay safe.